This is a 2006 Hyundai Tiburon 2.7. I've had to replace the alternator. Was getting the battery and e-brake light was flickering. I pulled the positive cable off of the battery while it was running to check and see if it was the alternator, and sure enough, as soon as it was pulled off while the car was running, it shut off immediately, which usually indicates that it's the alternator. I've already got the old alternator out and took it to the store, had it tested, and sure enough, that's what it was. This is a bit of a pain in the butt on the 2006 Tiburon to get it out. Of course, it is located back on the small underside area of the vehicle. You have to take your serpentine belt loose by loosening the tensioner and just taking it loose off the alternator. I don't know if you can see down in there, but my alternator is already out at the moment. I'm just kind of giving people an idea of how to do this. If you want to do it on your own without taking it to a shop, my alternator was pretty expensive. I could have got one on Amazon or somewhere and had it in a couple of days, but the reviews on most of the ones on Amazon were not that great, even though they were about half the price of the one that I purchased at the auto parts store. There was several people saying they had to return it, or they worked for 3 months and stopped working. But anyways, I went ahead and purchased the new one, $260. After I removed the serpentine belt off of the alternator, I also did drop the 3 bolts for mine are coilovers, so just so I can drop my axle down and everything a little bit more to give me a little more room. Some people say you didn't have to take the tie rod loose, but I did. It made it a lot easier to get it out of there. Let's see, this hole right up in here is where it came out of. You got 2 bolts basically that came off of the alternator. One on the top, one on the bottom. The one on the bottom has a pin through it. This is actually the pin that goes through it, and it comes from the opposite side. You can't slide it all the way out, but what you can do is lift it right off of that little, I don't know how well you can see there, but right there is where the pin sits. So it actually lifts right out of there. You can just kind of pry up on it and it'll come out instead of trying to pull the pin out. Once you get it out of there, you can slide the pin out, which makes it easier getting it out through here. The axle and everything is definitely kind of tough to work around. You got a few hoses, air conditioning lines, and radiator lines and stuff back here that make it a little more difficult to come out. But it will come out through there. It's definitely a pain in the butt. Once you get the alternator loose out of the pin, it gives you a little better access to the wiring harness to pull off of the back of the alternator and the ground wire. And once it's all disconnected, it's definitely a little tough. You have to wiggle it around and work it in a couple of different directions to get it to come out of here, but it was able to be done. Of course, had to take the wheel off. That was obvious. Anyways, this is the new alternator. I'm also going to put a new tie rod end on it, because mine was a little tough to get out. But as you can see, there's the electrical disconnect and the ground. But anyways, that's basically it. Main thing is taking the serpentine belt loose and your shock or your coilover, dropping it down. That made a big difference. Being able to lower this down some and give yourself just a little bit of extra room to pull it out of there. Anyways, I hope this helps somebody out. It's definitely a pain in the butt getting it out, and hopefully this takes care of the trick. Alright, thanks for watching.